I believe we have a quorum here and y'all are on time, so we'll go ahead and start. We really appreciate your participation in Rotary Career Day. This is my personal favorite meeting of the entire year. Unfortunately, I'll miss that. I am our zone's delegate to Rotary's legislature, which meets this next week. So we'll have people from 550 districts across the planet meeting in Chicago to consider once every 3 years the enactments, changes to bylaws, and so forth that govern Rotary. So I'm tied up with that next week and I can't attend Career Day, which is greatly disappointing to me, but I'll have something else interesting to do at the same time. The reason I love this is I regularly hear Rotarians leave Career Day speaking to each other and saying, you know, I remember once again why I'm in Rotary. This is a vocational service project. As you know, that one of the unique parts of Rotary is the idea that we bring our vocational experience into our community service roles. This is absolutely a classic, which trades on your know-how, your skills, your experience to help a student who is potentially considering a career somewhere in the direction of your career. We've matched those up, of course. Each of the career clusters is matched a host and co-host, perhaps 3, with a group of students that have expressed interest in that same thing. So this is a big deal. One of the reasons is that it is perhaps the first time some of these students have actually spoken with anyone who is in this career field that they think they might be interested in. It's produced some life-changing experiences, and we've got only a short time together, so I won't get into all those stories, but trust me, you'll feel like you put in a good day after Tuesday. This starts immediately after the meeting. Whatever time the meeting finishes, we'll take a little time for the tables to get organized and for those that are shadowing to leave with their shadowing hosts. And then, so that'll get us started probably about 1:15, and we have until 3 o'clock. It's easy to fill up that amount of time, particularly if you follow some practices that have worked over time for us. One of the things that you want to remind your students of is some of the rules of the road. For example, they need to have their parking ticket. They need to get their parking ticket barcode for the pass out. It's possible that they might owe $1 or $2. It'd be nice if they had some cash on them. If not, Pam has a kind of a fallback plan for that she'll explain. What I'd like to do is go into a guide that we've developed and used in past years. It's worked particularly well. This is actually the result of my vocational experience. I owned a business owners roundtable business for about 10 years. We did 60 events a year and used essentially this meeting protocol to manage a group of business owners. You might think managing a group of teenagers is challenging. I can guarantee you managing a group of business owners is at least that challenging. So I want to pass on some things that are known to work. First, there will generally be 2 or more Rotarian mentors per roundtable. So you have to decide between yourselves who is the lead, who's the primary facilitator, manages the table, keep the discussion on track. So most of the roles that I'm talking about here will be for that primary or lead person. So here's a suggestion. Start with just a round of introductions and some icebreakers. And what you want to do is explain what's going to happen, and then you demonstrate that behavior and then hand it off to the others around the table. So the first round is for the table hosts, the facilitator or other Rotarians or hosts at the table. And so the facilitator goes first, explains what we're going to do here is a quick round of introductions. I'd like you to give us your name. Tell us where you're from, where you grew up, where you've lived, and so forth. Tell us a little bit about your family, a little bit about your business, and tell us how and when you became a Rotarian. That's sort of the icebreaker question here. So I'll go first. My name is Terry Weaver. I grew up in southern Kansas. I was born on a cattle ranch near Dodge City, and then grew up in the back of my dad's hardware store. I've lived in major cities since my professional career started in St. Louis, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and now Greenville, South Carolina. My family is 2 children, both grown, both with families and spouses. One of those in Atlanta, one in Chicago, and 2 grandkids apiece, and my wife, Pam. My business, I've run large businesses for shareholders over my career. I've owned 3 businesses of my own, and I'm now downshifted to just a sort of an encore career doing business coaching a few days a month. I became a Rotarian back in the last century, back in the 1970s, when I was part of a major corporation of whom most of the leadership from the top down, president, CEO, vice presidents, regional managers, and branch managers were Rotarians. So it was kind of a no-brainer. Then I'd hand it off, for example, to Bert, who would do the same thing. So what you want to do is kind of review these, think them through, compress them into that roughly 1 minute time frame. Then we go on to the students, and you do exactly the same thing. You explain what you expect, which is I'd like you to give us your name, where you're from, where you've grown up, a little bit about your family, your school and your year, and how you got interested in this topic. Now, it was pointed out yesterday that it is possible that any one of these students maybe checked the wrong box or just kind of got drafted into this activity. So if somebody, kind of draws a blank on this, just excuse that, give them a pass. And then finally, if you have a dream job in mind, if you have a job that you just really imagine yourself doing, what is that? So we'll start over here with Josh. And of course, they'll all have name badges on. You'll know who they are. So I want to stop there and ask if there's any questions about just that introduction round. But okay with that? Just give them some framework, give them some direction, and then hopefully they'll jot down some notes on a piece of paper and keep them crisp. If someone gets a little bit long, you basically have to kind of rein that in. Say we're going to need to finish this up, or we need to move on, or something like that. And people will generally be respectful, particularly if the Rotarians and the facilitators do their 1 minute introductions inside 1 minute. But it's worth the time so everybody feels like they're on the same page. Okay, then what we'd like to do is for each of the Rotarians or hosts to provide a 2 to 3 minute, preferably 2 to 3 minute, just overview of your profession, your job, your likes, dislikes, that sort of thing. There is on the back of the sheet, there are some suggestions for how to do that. You might address things of like what attracted you to this field, how you found yourself on this career track, what education or training got you there, what re-education and training or certification or recertification or continuing education are part of this line of work. How your career's progressed up to this point. And this would just be a snapshot sort of your LinkedIn resume, your 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8 roles along the way. And then in your particular job or business, how your particular business role fits into this overall field. If, for example, you're a healthcare administrator, you can explain how there are people in healthcare that do not have healthcare delivery roles such as doctors and nurses, but rather they run the admin side of the business, which is pretty sizable. My friend John Hardaway, for example, is an engineer by training, a lawyer, and then he combined all those into a patent law practice. Or if you're, some completely unrelated major to what it is you're doing now, maybe you can explain how those dots connected for you. What do you like the most about what you do? That's always an interesting topic for folks. And then what are the really hard parts? What are the things that most people can't do that you're able to do, or things people don't want to do that you're willing to do? The parts of your job that may not be all that much fun, but they're certainly part of it. And I think this is particularly important because in my experience, what I've seen is that the higher incomes in almost every economic system, the higher incomes go to people who can do things most people can't, or will do things that most people don't want to do. Any native gifts and talents that you have, certainly you don't want to forget that you may have gravitated into the kind of work you're doing just based on gifts. In my particular case, I'm particularly gifted at mechanical and electrical troubleshooting. I can fix things. And of course, it wasn't surprising that landed me in engineering school. And then finally, what would you be doing if you weren't doing what you do now? So you may not have time for all of those, but they're just some thought starters in terms of your introductions for yourself. I'll stop and see if there's anybody else have any other thoughts in terms of what a student might find interesting about an adult's career, or a question they might have in the back of their mind. Okay. Now, here's something that I hope you can use outside of this. I always find when I do something in Rotary, I learn something I can use somewhere else in my life. When you do any kind of group activity like this, a group discussion, group problem solving, group planning, and so forth, one of the things that happens, you've seen it happen, one of the things that happens is whomever speaks first tends to set the direction for the entire conversation, and then it heads off that direction. And it's particularly challenging if whomever steps off the curb first goes off a little bit off topic, or wheel way out in the sand. It's very difficult to rein that back in. So here's a strategy to avoid that. Now they'll have paper on the table. We have a paper evaluation we ask them to finish at the end. So they use the back of that sheet of paper. You may want to bring a handful of ballpoint pens with you, just in case they show up without something to write with. But ask the students, just heads down, make a list of your individual items that you came here for today, the things that you'd like to learn today, the things that you'd like to take away from today, and then prompt them a little bit. If you have questions about the education or registration requirements, make a note of those. If you have questions about the overall business or industry, how it fits into the rest of the economy, make a note of those. If you have questions about a specific job within this broad career field that we're talking about, make a note of that. And then, if you've got misgivings or uncertainties, if somebody's told you, for example, that engineering is hard, math and science are hard. If somebody's told you that, make a note of that. We'd like to address those things. And then things that you've heard from other people about this, you might wonder if those things are true or not. And, we'll have some time to consider those. So what I'd like you to do is just individually on a sheet of paper in front of you, make a list of those things and give them about typically 5 minutes. We'll get it. Now, what this does is it gives them a chance to actually think somewhat freely. It gives the certainly less assertive, less extroverted students a chance to think rather than speak, which they're better at. And so it gives them a chance to kind of lay out what they came for, because what happens is when a group discussion starts, pretty much everybody gets focused on that topic, that question, and so forth, may completely forget that they had something else they had in mind. So it's a great process. It works beautifully. I use it in business meetings all the time. I use it with clients all the time, and it works really well. So the step 2 of that then, it becomes a round robin. What you want to do is call on one of the students and ask them for their personal favorite question of their questions, just the one, and let them ask that question. And of course, that'll give you and your co-hosts an opportunity to respond to that question for the benefit of everybody else at the table and for that student. Now, be sure and keep those answers short. You want to speak more or less in sound bites rather than long rambling stories. And you also, if you're the table host, it's your job again to rein this in. And you can use body language sort of techniques. And one of your co-hosts gets a little bit off topic or a little bit far afield. You can just kind of point at your watch if you have one of those. You can also, if it gets really out of hand, you can just put up a timeout. It is your job to keep this thing moving along. And the only way that works is if the people answering the questions, the hosts and co-hosts, if they keep their answers short. So then you go on to the next student. That student is invited to ask their personal favorite question off of their list. And of course, it's okay to get around the table about 2 or 3 rounds. Somebody will have asked someone else's questions and so forth. And it's okay for somebody to pass if they've simply run out. But what this will typically do is it will typically bring up other things and other directions for this conversation to go. So if you've got 5, 6, or 7 students, you're doing a round robin of all of those, maybe even 2 rounds. That's going to pretty well fill up some time. And the other thing it will do is it will keep you out of rabbit trails. It will keep you out of side topics that basically pretty much get in the way of delivering what we're trying to deliver here. Any questions about that process? That sound like something you can use?
Yeah. Thank you, Terry. It's Roger. Just a quick question, and if you covered this in the first 2 minutes, I was late. I apologize. But is each student just they're gonna select one table, and that's where they'll spend their entire day? There's not movement between tables?
Yes, they've already made those selections.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they chose as they volunteered. They chose just as you did. And
Terry, this is Chuck,
those all up.
Chuck, this is Chuck Baker, Terry.
Hey, man.
Do you recommend giving out business cards or no?
Absolutely. Should have mentioned that. Be a really good idea to bring your business cards. Yeah. You could and you can give them anything else you want in terms of contact information. They may want to get back with you, and that would be a valuable thing. Anybody else?
Terry, I'll add that students also love swag. If you have anything that you'd like to give away, they would much appreciate all of that, and they'll remember it a little bit more. Yeah,
if you have logo ballpoint pens, this would be a great place to do it, to bring them. Anybody else? Okay, again, I'd invite you to try. You don't have to do it this way. You're running your own table, but seriously, I'd invite you to try this and see if you don't find it somewhat portable to other things you do in your business life or even personal life. And then finally, you want to allow some time at the end. I'd plan on stopping about 15 minutes before 3, because we'd like to get some feedback from the students. And the other thing this does, it kind of helps them crystallize their thoughts. So you'll have a little 1-page evaluation sheet. It's entirely write-in. It's entirely essay questions. And one of those questions is, what's one of your most meaningful or most surprising takeaways from today? And then that's what you'd like to do as a final round. Just share one of your most meaningful or most surprising takeaways. And what you find about that also is it will remind students of something they heard that they kind of almost forgot about, but it was actually important to them as well. And again, that'll take probably 30 seconds apiece to go around the table of 5 or 6 kids. It'll take a little bit of time. So you want to finish up your roundtable questioning, round robin questioning about quarter till. Gives you 5 or 10 minutes for the evals, a little bit of time for the feedback round, and then any comments you want to make in terms of wrap up, summary, and so forth. So that's what we had for you. Hope that's a helpful framework for what you're trying to do on Tuesday. In the chat, you will find a link to that guide, and it will be coming out to you by email between now and Tuesday. And we do have for questions.
Yeah, Terry, at the meeting itself, are we going to try to have people sitting in the general area of their interest, or how are we going to organize that?
Good question, Bert.
Get them out and about. I know email from Pam that we're probably going to be going off site from the Weston. So, we want to be sure we've got everybody, all the gaggle to be gaggled.
There will be assigned tables and marked tables, and I'll let Pam explain that a little bit more fully.
Okay.
So Michelle has made signs with each career cluster to put up large saying reserved, and it's for this cluster. I've made some tent cards that will say host or student, and I'm hoping Lorraine and Casey can help me put these out. We'll see who actually shows up. So your names aren't on them, but the different hosts and students will be identified as where they're supposed to sit. We'll try to have the groups that are staying in the Weston spread far apart so that it's not too noisy. And we do have groups. We have 2 groups going to Clemson MBA, 1 to DB3 Architects, 1 to Weiss Law Firm, and possibly 1 to the Symphony office. So we'll spread out a little bit. But if you're staying in the Weston, we'll stay in the ballroom. And speaking of parking probably going to look for a couple of volunteers at the exits to just kind of stay there till the kids are gone, either with a credit card or with some $1 bills to help get them out so they don't get stuck in the parking garage. Most of these kids have probably never parked in a parking garage that they have to pay for. They've driven and they've parked, but not, and some of them haven't even been downtown. So it'll be a challenge for some of them.
This will be a true out-of-body experience for some of these students.
Pam and Ramona, for those of us who are going to the Clemson MBA, are you expecting the students, and even us, I guess, to leave our vehicles at the Westin, if that's where we park, and then just walk on up to the
Yeah, that would be the
location?
easiest. I mean, every place that we're going off-site is easy walking distance. So just leaving them in the parking garage is a good idea.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Thanks.
Sure.
Pam, just real quick, I've been known to forget to get my sticker on my parking ticket before, and I push the button and they've always let me out with any hassle. So,
Really?
yeah,
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
I tell them who I am, and they're on a first name basis with me now because I routinely forget that. So.
Dog ate my parking ticket.
That's right, basically.
That's really good to know. But I still think we should have some volunteers at the exits just so the kids don't get spooked and so that the line doesn't back up.
Of
They
course,
used
I
to be
wasn't
able to just
dissuading
leave the
that. I was
gate
just
up, but I
letting
guess
you
they
know.
can't do that
They're
anymore.
pretty good about it.
I think Roger should be the volunteer that does it so he can learn his lesson on paying his
There you go.
tab.
Or as soon as they hear Roger's voice, they're going to say, no need, just let him through.
Just let them through. That's right.
An old army saying about no good deed goes unpunished, Roger.
Yeah. I know. I'm very familiar with that, Bert. Thank you.
This
but I have no
is a
problem doing
tough
it.
room.
Pam, is there an area where the groups will corral before they leave to go to the offsite locations?
Probably just in the ballroom. Perhaps the leader of the cluster could hold up the table sign and have the kids go there, and they should be sitting with them already. If it goes like I hope it goes, they'll already be sitting in the correct cluster, so the table would just get up and move.
Are we in gold or poinsettia? Do we know?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hopefully gold, but I don't know. We'll also need volunteers to help them get to the meeting because most of them certainly won't have been to one of the ballrooms in the hotel.
In the entrance, in the lobby, on the parking garage.
Mm-hmm. I'll work with Michelle on that.
Now, the program has been arranged by Lorraine. It is a panel of people talking about internships as an education and vocational opportunity. So there will be a regular Rotary program and all the normal agenda, and then it'll wrap up and we'll go right into the Career Day roundtables. Anyone else?
I see your message, Lisa. I am emailing everybody. In fact, I got you confused with Lisa Minnick. Sorry about that. I am sending everybody an email saying who the hosts are in your cluster and approximately how many students we expect. Lorraine pointed out last night that they could change their minds. I mean, they could see somebody someplace else and go someplace different, and that's okay. We want this to be a good experience for them, not controlling. So if I haven't already emailed you that, Lisa, you'll get it sometime before tomorrow.
We asked you for 30 minutes. We've used 27 of them. Anybody else? Okay, well, once again, this is really true vocational community service. You will make a difference in the life of at least one student and perhaps more at your table. Have a good time with this. This can be really fun and really great experience for them and you. And we thank you for your service.
Terry,
Right.
just a
Thank you
minute.
very
Kathy McAfee asked a question about bringing business books. There are 22 students currently registered for business. So if you're going to bring books, I'd bring a lot. Maybe give them to more than just those registered for business. We'll see. Just so you know, there are 105 students registered altogether.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
This is a
Wow, that's
focus,
fantastic. Yep.
That's
We're
really
Thanks
cool.
to Lorraine.
making a difference.
Lorraine made that happen. Now, we can't say 105 kids will show up, but I'm pretty sure 105 kids will leave their high school.
Roger's gonna be spending a lot of time down there at the exit to the garage.
Yeah, I might wear out my buzzing finger, but that's all right.
Okay, everybody.
Hi,
Thanks so much. And
Thank you very much.
have a great time on Tuesday.